In January, she was sworn into office as one of the newest members of the Ohio Senate. Sandra Williams joins us next on Ohio in Focus. Welcome to Ohio in Focus, the program that brings state government to you. I'm your host, Mike Rao. We're pleased to have in the studio today a new face in the Ohio Senate, but someone who's not a stranger in the State House. State Senator Sandra Williams is our guest. She represents Cleveland and the 21st Senate District. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I said you were no stranger because you come to the Senate after spending 8 years in the House and have already kind of hit the ground running. You've put a lot of bills out there. I'd like to start off by talking about a few of those.
Sure.
It seems like you focused a lot on education and helping people get degrees and diplomas. One of them is Senate Bill 24, the OCOG grants, which would help kids if they want to go through the community college route to get an education. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. As you know, I sponsored several bills while being a state representative, and most of those focused on K through 12 education. But one of the things we found out is that once people graduate from high school, they really don't have the funds to go to college. Some people really just want to get a job where they can take care of their family and their children. So in doing research, we found that the Ohio College Opportunity Grant was not by law able to be used at a community college or a career and technical college. So I have sponsored a bill that would allow students to use the Ohio College Opportunity Grant at our two-year institutions to come up with some type of certification dealing with HVAC, dealing with welding, cosmetology, or whatever they choose to go into, whatever field. And we are trying to focus really on those high in-demand jobs that are out there. As you all know, right now there are over 77,000 jobs that are available to people that do not require a four-year degree. And so I believe that it's important for Ohio to do what we can to make sure that our citizens are ready to take those jobs. I mean, because the last thing we want are companies to actually leave our state because we don't have qualified workforce.
Mm-hmm. And another area you've looked at beyond the community college route is actually maybe making it easier for people to get community college, and that is a diploma or getting an equivalence diploma if for some reason they don't have a diploma already. That seems to be something maybe people don't talk about or think about a lot, but you know, without that diploma, it's hard to make that next step, isn't it?
Sure. Well, you know, there are a significant number of people who have not been able to get their high school diploma. Some of it because they may not be able to pass the OGT, the Ohio graduation test, or they just may have not had the desire to actually finish high school. And for those people who are taking the GED, it's very difficult for them to actually take the test. And if they take the test and don't pass all portions of the test, then the state requires that they actually retake the entire test instead of a portion of the test, which is a hardship. And talking to some of the professors who actually administer the test, that's creating a real hardship for people, because if you only missed the test by 1 point, you still have to take the entire test over again. And a few years ago, as you know, the state raised the cost of taking that test. So where it might have been like $40 or $50 to take it, now it's over $100. And so we're asking people who have not gotten their high school diploma, who don't have a job paying a livable wage, to actually pay over $100 to take their GED test. And that's a big problem. So one of the bills that I've introduced says that if you miss a portion of the test, don't pass that portion, then you would only take the portion of the test that you missed. Secondly, in order to give them a leg up, I would also like to use the Ohio College Opportunity Grant to help give them a kind of a hand up and get into college. And right now the bill is slated for $250 per quarter to help pay towards your college education. And that would again be at a career and technical institution or a two-year community college.
While we're on the topic of testing, maybe go on a tangent a little bit, because this has been an issue that's really been talked about a lot across the state, and it's been talked about in the Senate, is this testing we do in our schools.
Okay.
And I know you, no doubt, like all the other members, have been getting a lot of feedback from the community about the types of testing we do, and how much time is devoted to testing. What are people in Cleveland saying about that, and what do you think should be done about it?
Well, I'll tell you, I have been in the legislature for the last 14 years, 8 as an elected member in the House and 6 as a staffer. But in my first 3 months as a state senator, I have never gotten this many calls on any particular issue ever. And it all centers around park testing. The test that students have to take, the English and math portions that we just implemented a few weeks ago, has put a lot of people at odds with the state legislature for creating another test on top of the OGT and the OAA and the third grade reading guarantee. And I was in a meeting with a lady who teaches, I guess, K through 3, and she said that even before a student can get through their first month as a kindergarten student, they have to take a series of tests, and they don't even really talk to the parent about the test that they have to take. As soon as the student gets there, all they do is take tests to see where the child is. And it's just creating a hardship, not only for the school districts, it's creating a hardship for the parents, it's creating a hardship for some of the children who are ending up in, from what I've been told, in hospitals. They've had anxiety attacks, they've been depressed, they just don't want to go to school anymore because of these tests. And you know, the state also requires that the evaluation of our teachers are included and based on the number of students who actually take these tests, and the school districts. So with the tests that we're taking, school districts can lose a lot of money if the students don't actually take the test. So really, park exams have been a focus of the Education Committee since I've gotten there. We've heard from a lot of the outer ring suburban teachers and administrators, but we haven't heard a lot from our Ohio 8 yet. So I think that there are some concerns about how the test was implemented and how they've kind of, you know, brought it into the school system. Some people think that maybe we should kind of phase it in a little bit as opposed to, you know, giving it to everybody right off the bat. So we're looking at all of that in the Education Committee. We recently passed a bill, I believe it was House Bill 7, that actually was a safe harbor that says that although the students take the test this particular year, we will not include those grades on their report cards, and then we will not hold the teachers as well as the school districts for the number of teachers and the students that are not taking the test. So we're focusing on that. It's a big issue. It's one of the biggest issues that I've dealt with over the years. And as you know, I'm coming from the House where we probably had almost a third of the members in the House compared to all 99 members. And right now I have 8 committees, 5 ad hoc committees, and I've never had this many committees at one time anyway. So I'm focusing on a lot, but the education is important because I really believe that if we give kids a sound education, allow them the opportunity to either go to a 4-year college or a 2-year college, we can set them on their way to be successful in life. And then we can also stop them from being, I guess, a burden on state government resources with some of the social service programs.
So the challenge here, I guess, is that the fact that you got to strike the balance between the need to test,
right,
to measure success, or the need for remediation,
right,
but not making it so much that it seems like nothing else gets done.
That's exactly right. And one of the things we learned in committee is that the tests that the students took a couple of weeks ago will not even be available until the summertime. And so if we're using those tests to gauge where they are and whether they are ready to go into the workforce, well, the students would have already graduated this year and they won't even know how they're doing on the test. So, you know, the timing of the test is also important and something that we've talked about overall as well.
I want to get into one last topic, and that's something that you're very much involved with right now, and it's the Governor's Task Force on Community and Police Relations. That came about as a result of not only things happening across the country like Ferguson, Missouri, but also here in Ohio, an example obviously in Cleveland with Tamir Rice. First of all, what's been your impression so far of the work the task force has done, and what ultimately do you hope to achieve?
Sure. Well, I can say, you know, myself and former Senator Turner asked the governor to create this task force, and we are working with Alicia Reese out of Cincinnati, as well as Dr. Ronnie Dunn out of Cleveland State University. And the governor was gracious enough to create this task force, and we've been going across the state. We recently finished our 4th hearing in Cincinnati, Ohio, and so far the response has been very great. People have been very receptive, but the concern has been that is this task force another task force like all the rest, where you're going to go around, you're going to listen to people and do absolutely nothing? So the real focus for me is to make sure that this task force delivers something that the people want, and something that will make life a little safer for people in these urban communities and in the rural communities that have faced excessive use of force by one of their family members. Tamir Rice is a perfect example. You have John Crawford from Beaver Creek, Ohio. And then you have several incidents that we don't even know about, that people talk to us about as we go through the community. And we've heard countless examples of how people have been profiled. One example, when we were at Central State University, one of the professors told us that her son was driving her Jaguar from Wilberforce to Beaver Creek, and he was stopped 7 times.
Wow.
In one night on his way home by a police officer. And so we want to make sure that we look at the issue of profiling, data collection. We want to look at the type of training that the police officers are given, the hiring practices for some. It was brought up to me that many of the police departments, the smaller police departments in our state, sometimes don't even do a background check on people, because when police officers come through with that OPATA certificate, they assume that this person has already received the necessary training, is ready to go onto the streets. Well, that might not be the case. We have that with the example of the police officer that was hired in Cleveland with the incident with Tamir Rice, whose former employer said you shouldn't even ever be a police officer. So we're looking at the training, the hiring. We're also looking at what police officers do when you run into a personal crisis intervention, when you run into a person who might be mentally ill, who might be deaf, or who might have some other type of disability that the police department is not used to dealing with. We've also been given some information on 911 callers and what information they're actually conveying to the police officers. We know that they don't get to hear the call when they go out on the call. They basically get, this is the address, this is what we think is going on, and then the officers run out into the situation. So, you know, I have several family members who are police officers, and I want to make sure they come home. I have a nephew right now who is trying to be a Secret Service or a highway patrol. I want to make sure that when he gets that job, he's able to come home. And I want to make sure that the families are safe in our communities, and that the people actually know who's policing our communities. We are now in the part of our task force where we are putting our recommendations together for the governor, and they will be out probably in the mid part of April, and hopefully we'll be able to get some of those things into the state budget. And what we also realize is that we probably won't have completed everything that we need to do by April the 30th, and maybe there is a need for ongoing meetings throughout the community. So those are some of the things we're looking at.
Okay. Well, thank you, Senator Williams. Covered a lot of ground today. We'll have to have you back soon, and we'll talk about some other issues as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
And don't forget that you can follow Senator Williams and the Ohio Senate Democratic Caucus on Facebook, Twitter, and ohiosenate.gov. Thanks for watching Ohio in Focus.